Hello everybody, welcome back to Escape from Bald Mountain Part 4. I wanted to get this video up earlier in the week, but some things happened and I didn't get around to it. Work, family, stuff like that. So my goal with this video is to try and form the base of the mountain, or the majority of the terrain of the mountain, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't get it done, and at this point I'm just going to wait for Alpha 3 because Gamescom's happened this week and there's a lot of stuff in Alpha 3 that I'm really looking forward to, and after seeing what they have, most of this video becomes moot. As you can see here, a lot of my time I spent in this video has been trying to make this mountain very rough and mountainous and have stalactites and stalagmites and all sorts of crazy things. And with the new roughing tool that we're going to have in Alpha 3, that's pretty much, it's all, I don't want to say it's all wasted work, because I actually do like some of the things I've done with the terrain, and I'll probably keep some of it going into Alpha 3, but a lot of it is going to be moot. So unfortunately I did not finish Escape from Bald Mountain prior to the release of Alpha 3, but with the release of Alpha 3 I'm probably going to be revisiting it and doing everything over again. Maybe not everything. I'll probably keep the core buildings intact, but there's a lot of really cool stuff in Alpha 3 that we've seen over the past couple of days at Gamescom that's really having me really excited, and for that reason I've put the production on Escape from Bald Mountain on the back burner until I get it, which is, I'm recording this on Friday, so it'll be out on Tuesday. So hopefully for next week's video I have some new tools I'll be working with. So that's very exciting to me, I don't want to get too much into the whole Gamescom thing and everything that's happening with Gamescom, but suffice it to say that it's going to be a very big update, probably the biggest update of any of the alpha phases we've had so far. And if we get everything that they showed at Gamescom, which I don't know if we will, but there's a plethora of tools that they've put into the game that are really cool, and I'm very excited about it. So but this video is primarily talking about terrain, and since it's pretty boring and you can kind of see what I'm doing, I guess what I really want to do is I'll talk a little bit about park theory, and specifically for this ride. As you're aware, this is designed to be a Disney park, designed to be a Disney attraction, and more importantly it's designed to be a Disney coaster. And there's very specific things that Disney does with all of their attractions, but specifically roller coasters, that if you're going to build a Disney coaster you have to keep these things in mind. So when Escape from Bald Mountain is a little bit of a sort of an iconoclast attraction, and what I mean by that is it plays with the traditions of Disney design, of Imagineering design for coasters, but it does different things within that design philosophy. Let me explain it a little better. Okay, so let's start all the way back at the formation of Disneyland. Again, the idea behind Disneyland was to have a theme park that was fully themed, immersive. Everywhere you stepped, you would be immersed in a world that was perfectly architecturally and naturally themed to fit an overall aesthetic style. At no point in the park were you supposed to see the outside world, and at any time you're in a land, you're supposed to be immersed within that land. So there's certain things that Disney does that most other parks don't do. There's a few out there that do, which make them very unique, and why Disney and the Disney parks are considered the greatest parks in terms of theme design in the world. One of the things you'll notice about Disney attractions, and specifically Disney roller coasters, and it's a big reason why they haven't done really intense roller coasters. There's a couple other reasons which I'll talk about, but one of the biggest reasons you don't see it is because, if you haven't noticed, Disney absolutely hates being able to see roller coaster supports. Okay, so if you have an outdoor roller coaster, every single support on that roller coaster is meant to either be themed after a different type of part, like when you think of Big Thunder Mountain, the roller coaster supports in the track is meant to resemble an old runaway mine train track. Okay, and the same could be said for like Expedition Everest. So anytime you have a Disney coaster, you will never see any support that is not themed to what it's trying to do. Even something like California Screamin' over at Disney's California Adventure, it's supposed to be themed after a California classic boardwalk style roller coaster. It's supposed to resemble a wooden roller coaster. So technically those are unthemed supports, but even those supports are meant to look like a wooden roller coaster. So let's bring this all back and let's talk a little bit about where Escape from Bald Mountain fits in the tradition of Disney mountains. And this is something that's also very interesting. If you're not aware of it, Disney Imagineering has a very long-standing tradition of mountains within their parks, and they do this for many reasons. It's because they're visual, what Disney called weenies, and no, we're not talking about male private organs. We're talking about big, tall structures that draw the eye upwards towards them, and they're meant to sort of serve as visual cues and aesthetic cues to the land itself. So if you think of, the castle is obviously probably the most famous weenie in Disney history, but there's all sorts of other ones, and a lot of them in these Disney parks are centered around the mountains, right? And they're all over the parks everywhere around the world. Big Thunder Mountain, Space Mountain, Splash Mountain, Expedition Everest, which is themed after a Himalayan mountain. You have, I believe it's called Mount Prometheus at Tokyo Disney Sea, that houses the Journey to the Center of the Earth attraction. You have Grizzly Peak over at California Adventure. So the tradition of a Disney mountain is something that stretches all the way back to, I believe it was 1960, I want to say. I could be wrong on that date, around there, when Disney brought the Matterhorn into Disneyland. He wanted to have his own mountain in Disneyland. And from that started this tradition of the Disney mountain. So Escape from Bald Mountain is meant to fit in to that Disney tradition of the Disney mountain. And one of the things you're going to notice about the Disney mountain is almost all of them house some sort of thrill ride attraction. It doesn't necessarily have to be a roller coaster, but many of them are. But you have things like, log flumes like Splash Mountain, or big river rapid rides like Grizzly River Run, Kali River Rapids, things like that. The thing about the Disney mountains that you're going to notice, apart from being visual representations of the land they're supposed to be in and represent, is the theming of the mountain. It really sets the mood for the whole land, and it really sets the mood for the attraction itself. So when you think of like Big Thunder Mountain, you are in this sort of classic American Western style canyon-esque, based on the Bryce Canyon or the Zion National Park out in Utah, those type of monuments, national monuments, and our natural mountainous ranges. When you think of Splash Mountain, you see a big, tall, sort of almost burrow-esque mountain that's meant to be the home of these small little cute little characters. So they serve to represent something about their land, and they do so in a very grand manner. So when we're talking about the Shadowlands, the land about the villains and where the villains live, then Bald Mountain has to be very, very, very imposing and scary and threatening. So what you're going to see me do here is, obviously, I'm trying to make anything you see on the coaster look, contoured and threatening and just basically uneven. With the rugged tool coming in Alpha 3, a lot of this work is going to be pretty moot. So that's why I didn't fully finish this mountain right now. In the next video, I'm going to just do a general ride through, and you can see right here what I'm talking about supports. I hate having supports that are just sticking out, and in Alpha 3 I'll be able to toggle that, which is really, really cool. So any chance I get to bring the terrain up to the support, that's what I'm going to do, and bring it up. But back to the subject of the Disney mountains. One of the things you'll notice about that's another sort of departure from traditional Disney roller coasters is Escape from Bald Mountain is probably, if it was built today by Disney, this would hands down be their most intense roller coaster they've ever built throughout any of their parks, because it's got multiple inversions, it's in this heavily themed environment, and it's just generally not what Disney likes to do. It doesn't like to do these big, sprawling, crazy roller coasters. They may have a couple coasters that go upside down here and there. You think of Rock and Roller Coaster, California Screamin', Space Mountain Mission 2, but generally speaking, it's very minimal and it's very minor. And that's, again, because Disney likes to appeal to all audiences, so they don't want to build anything that's so wild and crazy that, your general healthy, even young child or even elderly adult wouldn't be able to go on. So this is iconoclastic with what they would traditionally do, because we're going with a crazy wing coaster that's fast, it's got multiple inversions, it's going all up and down this crazy canyon mountain space, so it's a little bit iconoclast there. And again, back to the tradition of the Disney mountains, Disney's also never really done something that's so dark that it turns people off. They did that a little bit back in the 90s with the alien encounter down at Disney World, which is actually a really unique attraction, which unfortunately has gone by the wayside. People either loved it or hated it. I generally thought it was very effective for what it did, but that's besides the point. But you're never going to see Disney do something so dark and crazy and scary that it's going to turn off a majority of visitors, or even younger visitors. So again, it's a little iconoclast in that sense, because again, this is supposed to be a mountain that's consumed with demons, right? It's run by a demon. The demon is up there on the top of the mountain, eating souls essentially. There's witches having black masses. There's goblins and ghosts flying around. And generally speaking, if you ever watch the Night on Bald Mountain sequence, it's kind of a freaky little thing, right? It's pretty intense for its target audience. Even to this day, it's not something that's you would even think would come from the mind of Disney, but it did. So it's a little iconoclast in that way, and it's also very non-traditional in its general layout. And what I mean by that is I shouldn't say layout, I should say inspiration, right? When Disney does a recreation, especially of their own IP, they generally try and stick very closely with the traditional visual cue of that inspiration. So when you look at something like Toontown, that's supposed to represent pretty much Roger Rabbit and Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse's Mickey Mouse Club, all their houses, and they pretty much resemble it how you'd see it in the movies or the TV shows. When you look at Cars Land down at Disney's California Adventure, it's supposed to represent Radiator Springs, and it does a very good job of that. Escape from Bald Mountain does not really look anything like the Bald Mountain from the actual Fantasia sequence, and I'm going to pull a picture of it here, and you can see it here. I just didn't think this conical sort of canyon-esque nature of this mountain was going to work in a theme park setting, because the attraction I wanted to build, this big wing coaster, couldn't fit in that very small conical mountain structure. So I've taken a lot of creative liberties there and kind of just try to keep the general look of the mountain going, so the crazy spires and the crazy sharp cliffs and canyons, but I've toned down the overall conical shape of it, and I've made it more of a sort of a wide bowl that leads up to a big focal point up top. So that's a little bit of a departure from what Disney would traditionally do as well. So this attraction is very iconoclast in many respects, and it's also very unique from a Disney perspective in the fact that Disney does not do these crazy huge roller coasters. I would like to think that if they were to do something like this, that it would look something similar to this. with the attention to detail. And one thing Disney does do is, obviously we talked about the mountains, but with their mountains, they go all out, right? If you've been on the Matterhorn, Big Thunder Mountain, Splash Mountain, they don't mess around. Those mountains are fully fleshed out, beautifully rendered and made fake facades, essentially, but they look so convincing. Especially like the most prominent example I can think of, which is, I believe, their most recent one. I take that back, Shanghai just had something open, but would be Cars Land at California Adventure. I mean, that really looks like a desert mountain range. Like, if you were to go there and you walk up, you really feel like you're in the middle of a desert mountain range. The attention to detail they've put into that attraction, into that land, is astounding. So I'm hoping to recreate some of that Disney-esque feeling. To be honest with you, an attraction of this size, of this stature, with this much detail and this much rock work, probably pushing even Disney's budget. So in Alpha 3, I may revisit it a little bit, trying to tone it down. And there's some things about this area in the game itself that I don't really like. It's a little too fantastical for my taste. What I mean by that is, something like this, even for Disney, probably wouldn't be ever built. Maybe I shouldn't say never, but it'd be really tough to get this past the pencil pushers and the penny pinchers over at the budgeting departments for Disney, because this attraction alone would probably push the $1 billion mark. When you look at how Cars Land was, I believe, a $1.2 million or $1 billion project, and this is on par with that and probably surpasses it in many respects if it was built in a real world setting. So there's a little bit of fantasy going on here, not in terms of theme, but in general building of the attraction itself. But I figured if I'm going to go for an all-out Bald Mountain attraction roller coaster, might as well do it and just have fun with it. So when I do my video on park theory, you'll kind of get into my mind about how I view different park philosophies and design philosophies behind how people and companies build parks. And there's some aspects of this specific area that I'm going to have to add in later to give it a realistic feel, right? Things like back corridors for workers and worker break rooms. The layout of the land itself is not very Disney-esque. Disney does not like to do a lot of different alleyways and paths. They like to have one or two very, very specific pathways and everything along that berm. So I'll probably have to redo a lot of it, but at any rate, I wanted to get this video out there, last video before Alpha 3, and I hope you enjoyed my bloviating, and we'll see you in Alpha 3.